First of all, that chaos is on purpose. There's no doubt in my mind about it at all. And having been born in Cuba, I'm well familiar with this operation. This is a movie I've seen before.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for October 7th through October 14th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature Australian silver kangaroos at just $2.99 over spot. Next, backdated 1-ounce gold Canadian maples are just $60 over spot. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Well, you've covered a lot of territory. I think that was very helpful. One of the things you mentioned way back in the beginning was you got into this because to be a lawman, and that law and order is something that's of value to you, and you believe it's of value to the community, and you believe in protecting the ordinary person. What is your take on the trend that seems to be evident in our culture for the past decade at least of this tension, which seems to be shifting from a longtime adherence to the rule of law and the Constitution and shifting towards what was exemplified by slogans such as defund the police or stand down and let the rioters riot because they're upset, therefore they have a right to burn and loot and all these things because it's mostly peaceful, or that sort of thing. Can you talk to us for a moment about that apparent trend from the rule of law and the Constitution to standing down and defunding the police?
First of all, that chaos is on purpose. There's no doubt in my mind about it at all. And having been born in Cuba, I'm well familiar with this operation. This is a movie I've seen before. This is how communists. First of all, they divide the population. So right now you have a very divided population. Most of it is from the media, promoting all these different agendas that, whether you believe them or not, that's up to you. But as far as the trend of criminality, there's several different factors involved in that. I think in this day and age, you're more likely to go to prison as a lawman for having done something that may be on the border or maybe not even on the border of legality than you are as a stone cold criminal. The idea that they have turned what used to be serious felonies into misdemeanors, at least here in the state of California, if you steal from a merchant and it's under $1,000, they can't. Supposedly, it's a misdemeanor. You're going to get cited out. The cops probably won't even respond at that point because, there's other things going on around here. But it's kind of like the broken window theory in New York, right? It starts with the small stuff, like in San Francisco. I'm right across the bay from San Francisco. I mean, it's atrocious, right? The cops don't respond to most things, right? The graffiti's out of control. You got homeless people everywhere. You got people shooting drugs on the street. You got prostitution openly on the street. It's a 3-ring circus. Well, you cannot have a society under those terms. That just doesn't work. Then it becomes, basically Road Warrior or Mad Max or something like that. Every man for himself. And believe you me, the police are the sheepdogs of society. Okay. When that wolf comes a-coming, the police are going to be the ones that will be there to protect you. Hopefully. Now, there's a qualification for that. When seconds count, the police are only minutes away. That's an old saying, and you have to adhere to that. It's your own obligation to take care of yourself. But the criminality, I think this has been instituted and as part of their program is what it is. There's no doubt in my mind that's part of their program. The petty theft stuff, what used to be, so you had in California, petty theft was under $400 before. Now it's $1,000, right? You had a thing called 666, petty theft with prior, which turned a petty theft after the several, second or third time, turns it into a felony. And they put people in prison for this. But, they started with they did this to me when I came in. used to be you couldn't do but 1 year in jail, right? And then unless you were being held for trial, right? And generally trials happened within that year, right? When I came into office, there was a proposition passed that said that you can serve an indefinite amount of time in jail, right? So it moved the burden from the state prison system over to the local county for housing people who may have been sentenced. I had one guy who was sentenced for 16 years in my jail, right? And the jails aren't equipped for that either. So, even the lack of enforcement, right? Because they have cowed the police, right? Back in the day, the police were proactive to a great degree. Now they're mostly reactive. And they also have been made aware by all the stuff that you said, to defund the police, all this stuff, all the communist propaganda that they have implemented, the mainstream media and even some other media. It's not just the mainstream, in my opinion. You got some YouTubers that say some crazy stuff out there. But all of that has put the officers on notice that if they make an innocent error, that they could go to prison. They could lose their pension. At minimum, they'll lose their job or get, lots of time on the beach. Nobody wants that. So what do? They slow down the response. You got 211 in progress. We used to break our necks to be the first guy to get there, right? Now it's like, you're taking side streets and detours to respond to these a priority calls. It is a program. Now, I'm an optimist. I believe all that can be undone. And I'm actually seeing a lot of that these days. That people are starting to get well fed up with the bullshit, right? All this, men can get pregnant. The cops are the enemy. We don't need any borders. And listen, I'm an immigrant. Okay. So I am grateful for being brought into this country. And I'm grateful for the opportunities I've been given, and I've exercised those opportunities to the best of my ability, starting my own business, being in law enforcement the majority of my life. All of those things are opportunities I would not have had in Cuba. I'd probably be dead in Cuba with my attitude. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So as an immigrant, as somebody born in another country who is here by the good graces of the American people, who are probably not even probably, I know this for a fact because I've traveled, they are the kindest and the most generous people on earth as a whole. Okay. As an immigrant being brought in here, you cannot have a country with open borders. It just doesn't work. Okay. And then this administration has allowed, many different countries, because back, I don't know if you're familiar with the 1980 Mariel boatlift, the Cuban boatlift. Okay. Fidel Castro released the worst of the worst prisoners and the insane asylums too, by the way, from Cuba. By trick and device, he said, hey, I'm going to release all these dissidents. But in fact, what he did was he filled the boats that were being sent by the family of the people of Miami, filled them up with these criminals. There's nothing short. There's no other word that can describe them. And many of them were very violent and very dangerous. And I had to deal with that in San Francisco when I was with SFPD, with the repercussions of that Mariel boatlift. Well, this is deja vu all over again. This is the Mariel boatlift on steroids is what's going on now. And people don't understand, or I shouldn't say people don't understand because that's too broad, but people who have had the good fortune of having peace and prosperity and a home and a respect for life, as part of their upbringing and their culture and their living, it's difficult to wrap your mind around what goes on in other countries. The value of life in many of these countries, Venezuela, you can see that stuff that's going on in Colorado. These guys are going around like, what is this? But that is, they'd shoot you just as soon as look at you. And because there's no value for human life. This country has a particular set of virtues and a culture and a historic way of doing business that does value human life, or did, I should say. I think that's eroded a fair bit in this day and age, but did value human life. And it's being marauded, literally, by people. Not all of them are bad. A lot of them are good people. I know several people who came here illegally, and I disagree with them. But I'm not a law enforcement officer at this point. I'm not an ICE agent. I'm not. All I can say is, good for you, I guess, right? But here's another angle, right? As I drive down these streets here where I am, I see tents everywhere, right? And a lot of, and I like to talk to people, right? Particularly, I like to talk to criminals, right? I like to get in their head and figure out, what went wrong in your head? What went wrong with you, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you a rapist? Why are you like little kids? Why are you, hold people up? Why do you knock a little old lady down on the street to take her purse? Why do you do these things? I've always had a curious mind about that. But as I drive around here, I see so many people that are hurting really bad in this economy, really bad. And I see so many homeless veterans, right? People who have, some of them lost limbs. Most of them have been mentally scarred and irreversibly mentally scarred. And they are being neglected in favor of funding housing and education, clothing, food, and all kinds of things for people who were not born in this country and who did not do it the legal way, right? They didn't get their green card. They didn't get their citizenship. They didn't learn how to speak English. They didn't absorb into the culture. They just, we use this word, boulashed. They boulashed their way across the border and landed here. And then all of a sudden they're being funded and treated better than U.S. born U.S. population, many of whom are veterans who have sacrificed an enormous amount for this country. These are the people that you can thank for your freedom, for your ability to have First Amendment rights, for your ability to have Second, all the amendments, right? And all your constitutional rights have been born from the blood of these veterans. And then you throw them out on the street and let them live in a tent. That is outrageous. That is, it's just outrageous. And you have children here who need proper education. And I have a real bone to pick with the education system in this country at this point in time. I think that people, but our children should be entitled to a good education first, and we can't educate unfortunately, right? We can't, even though we fund these wars and all this crazy stuff and all this aid to all these different countries, right? We cannot support the entire planet. That's ridiculous. That's why there's different countries and they are responsible. Their politicians and their bureaucrats and the people who run the show are responsible for their well-being. And that's how it should be. But the people in this country have lost, the politicians in this country and the bureaucrats, these entrenched bureaucrats, what they call a deep state, right? These people who are unelected, but they can't be taken out supposedly because of their civil service protection and all this stuff. These people are not attending to what they are being handsomely paid to do, which is to look out for us, right? to look out for Miss McGillicuddy, to look out for Joey, to have our backs, to make sure that we have what we need to take care of our infrastructure, to make sure that the electrical system is protected, to make sure that our borders are protected. To make sure that there are no children going hungry in this country, right? That no native born children are going hungry in this country. And if they weren't being allowed to bring in these kids, which is a shame, okay, then their country might do a better job of being able to take care of them. I mean, we have a very wealthy and getting, not so wealthy, but country here. But there are other countries that are really well off, that can afford to take care of their own offspring, that can afford to take care of their own people, and they can afford to keep their criminals in their own jails. That's important. Don't send your garbage over here. All right. Don't take your problem, your sociopaths, your psychopaths, your criminal element, your crazy people. Don't send them over here so that they can victimize our families, our kids, our wives, our mothers. I don't understand, honestly, how it is that that they can even hold their head up and look you in the face. I don't get it. I really don't get it. How they can just allow all this criminality, allow your U.S. fiat paper currency to get completely destroyed, allow the jobs from this country to be sent out to China or Taiwan or Indonesia or India or the Philippines or Malaysia. That should never have been allowed, because you have to understand, they have emasculated, for the most part, a large majority of the American male. And the easiest way to do this is not by, any type of physical action or anything like that. It's mental. Right. And what they're doing is, when you take away an individual's ability to provide for their family, you are destroying that individual. So when you hollow out the American heartland, or the Rust Belt, or, when you're destroying the farms because you're not, all of these things, when you take away a man's ability to care for their family, to feed their children, to be independent, to get up in the morning and look in the mirror and be proud. Hey, you know what? I may not be, I don't have a high-end job, right? I'm not some big, tech CEO or any of that stuff, but you know what? I can fix that car, right? I can work on that piece of equipment, right? I can build that bridge. I can build that house over there, right? I could put things together, but they just completely eviscerated all of that out of the heartland of this country. And now you have people, look at the suicide rate, it's through the roof. Look at, the government promotes single mothers, right? The more kids you have, the more welfare you get, right? And listen, I'm not against taking care of kids. I'm not anti-welfare. Don't get me wrong. Don't start hating on me over this, because I've heard plenty of it already, so I don't really need any more. I understand where you're coming from, but you have to understand where I'm coming from, okay? I believe that the first line of defense for children is the father and the mother, okay? And that's who should be doing the raising, not the nanny state, not the government, not any of these bureaucratic characters, not the foster care system, not any of them. But again, it's been promulgated by not just this administration. It's been going on for decades now, and I've been seeing it for decades, but it's gotten way worse. Okay. Now, the current stewardship in Washington has done a horrific job straight across the board. Food freedom. They're attacking, as we speak, they're attacking the Amish farmers in Pennsylvania. That is outrageous. These people are they're just kind and decent and old school. Yeah, they don't like to get their picture taken. So what? They don't use phones. So what? But they're being attacked because there's an attack on your health. And that's the number one thing that, as we transition here, I want to bring to people's attention. And I'll tell you this, I'm a mortician. Okay. And I founded this business when I was a young patrol officer in SF Police. Okay. This business has done over 30,000 cremations, and we've probably handled over 40 or 50,000 bodies in total between burials and ship outs and other types of dispositions. Okay. So when it comes to health, and I've read tens of thousands of death certificates. Okay. I see what's going on, and I see it live and in color here. I actually see the results of the obesity epidemic. Okay. Of the processed foods, of the oils that they put in everything, of the food colorings that they put in everything. Those things are poison. The amount of sugar in people's diets, the amount of carbohydrates in people's diets, just and they give it to children. So, 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, I never saw it really, occasionally, but I never saw an obese kid, right? Now they're everywhere. 20 years ago, I could make most removals by myself, right? To pick up a body. Now, the average body is well over 200 pounds. There has been since probably 2000, maybe a little before 2000 to now, a steady increase in the weight of people, which leads to metabolic disease, metabolic syndrome, which leads to cancer, heart disease, pulmonary embolisms, strokes, diabetes, kidney disease, liver disease, you name it. The entire gamut I see here. And now, as of late 21, late 22, now I get to, and I got to tell you, I'm pissed. Okay. And I really am pissed, because there's one thing, I want my son to succeed here, right? And for him to succeed, honestly, people have to die, right? That's just the way this business works. I'm in the mortuary business. SCI, Service Corporation International, just posted their highest profits ever this quarter. They are the biggest conglomerate, the biggest owners of mortuaries, crematories, cemeteries, mausoleums worldwide. Service Corporation International. You can look this up for yourself. It's just Google it. There's a reason for that. The death rate has been steadily climbing. Now, there's multiple reasons for that. One of them is just that a lot of these people who haven't taken care of themselves are sitting out there weighing 300 pounds and won't get out and do it, won't address it. And you don't really even have to exercise. Just stop eating junk, right? Stop eating the processed food. Stop eating the Captain Crunch and the Doritos and all that crap, right? Stop eating or drinking the sodas, and you will do yourself a huge favor. Here's the other side of the equation. Before 21, 22, I'd never really seen a lot of child death, okay, which is really difficult. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for everybody that works here. It's just a difficult thing to handle, right? I mean, unless you're a sociopath or a heartless, SOB, you see a child, it's going to hurt, right? I have had here 2 children die of heart attacks, ages 9 or 10 years old in the last couple of years. I've seen countless amounts of 30-year-olds come through here and die of pulmonary embolism, heart attack, stroke, blood clots, advanced stages of cancer where they show the first go around, right, from symptom to stage 4 is the same visit. Okay. That's unheard of. Now, I don't care what anybody tells me. I mean, I just believe what I know, right? I'm looking at these death certificates. I am picking up these bodies. not so much anymore, but I'm still involved in here. I'm kind of shadowing my kid just to make sure that everything is done properly. We run a good operation, and I want to make sure everything's done right. These are things I've never seen before, and they're alarming. They're very alarming, actually. And I don't even know if I'm allowed to say this because you might get censored. I don't want to get you demonetized. I don't want to get you in any trouble. Okay. But I think you know what I'm talking about. If I can't say it, then fine, whatever. I mean, I say it out loud to anybody who will listen to me, right? I talk to people about this. I talk to the next of kin of people. They say, how is it possible that I woke up this morning and my 30-year-old husband, who's in perfect shape and not even like unhealthy eating or overweight or anything like that, is dead next to me in my bed? How is that possible? It's real simple, ma'am. I ask one question and the answer is always yes. And then you make of it what you want. But then you have this system that protects these criminals. You have a system that protects criminals. And when I'm talking about drug manufacturers, the same people who created the fentanyl epidemic, the same people who created, the Oxycontin, the Oxycodone, the Percocets, all of that shit, right? Excuse me. All of that stuff. They're not held to answer. You should be in prison, and so you have, but it's a system, and we have to break that system. We have to figure out a way to break that system. I'm not a big, my sister's a doctor, but she's a good doctor. She knows what she's doing, and she is a really decent human being. And, I talk to her all the time about these issues, and, but we have to break this system, this system where these pharmaceutical companies are paying off these doctors to prescribe all these medicines. So then the person gets prescribed one thing, and that very prescription, that very same quote unquote medication is harming them to a point where they need another medication to try to, take care of the adverse symptoms of the first medication. And then it's just a downhill spiral, which has your government paying for a lot of it, right? Because, you're over 65, you have Medicare. If you're broke, you have Medi-Cal here in the state of California, or the hospital will eat it, but they're making plenty of money anyway. But again, for me, I approach a doctor. I like the idea of going to a physician's assistant or some type of holistic type doctor. If I don't need a doctor, I'm perfectly healthy. I'm in good shape. I feel good for my age, right? I've got great labs, but I got nothing to complain about. But if you need a physician, I would recommend that you go to somebody who's not intertwined with the big pharma. Not the guy who's coming in and hey, look, your labs are a little high. You got a little bit of cholesterol. Let me give you this stuff, right? And then that's going to cause a problem. So, it's a downward spiral. So, as far as me taking any prescription drugs I want, as far as me taking any type of clot shot, no, I wouldn't. I would never do it, and I would not recommend. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just this guy talking, right? You and me talking. This is my just personal recommendation. I wouldn't touch any of that stuff. I think that's all poison, right? Personal opinion. If you want to knock yourself out, I'm here to help, right? From a professional perspective. But, listen, I don't mean to make light of it. Okay. But, sometimes a little humor helps, right? It keeps you sane.
Well, sometimes it can break through the trance that we get put into by the lies the web of lies that we've been spun into, so that we can wake up and reconnect with our inner intuition, our inner gut guide that tells us this is not the way things are meant to be. This has been a fascinating and wide-ranging discussion, and I think that we'll need to follow up in several sessions to kind of do deep dives in many different areas. One that we haven't touched on sufficiently before we wrap would be helpful, and that is, do you feel at this time that we are on the cusp of a regime change what's being termed an election that we're expecting to happen next month, between the Constitution versus a final takeover of the, I would call it the authoritarian socialist state, whether that's a federal deep state, as you mentioned, or a globalist powers that are completely unelected by us and untouchable, uninfluenceable by the ordinary person. What's your view of the precipice that we find ourselves on as a nation, and how that fits into the picture of what's going on in the world? You already brought it down to the family level, which is exactly where I was hoping you'd bring it to. But if you could show us kind of the other end of that spectrum.
Well, unfortunately, I believe that if the globalists, basically the operation that's there now, right? These puppets, sock puppets for the, globalists, the international crowd, the elites that I was speaking about. If they manage to finagle, fortify or whatever you want to call it, another election, and I think we are going to have a revolution in this country. The people that I speak to, retired law enforcement, retired military, and just the average Joe down the street, right? And I'm talking about places that would normally be considered liberal, right? Or, left-leaning, as you would have it, because I consider myself a liberal, right? I've always considered myself a liberal, but that definition has completely changed, right? I'm a libertarian. I'm a guy, live and let live, don't mess with people, give everybody their space, and treat everybody nicely, and try to just be respectful and mind your business, right? And take care of your family and do what you need to do. I don't think this country, as we know it, will survive another administration of this nature, the current administration, without serious internal conflict. And that might happen anyway. If Trump is elected, I think that the hoodlums and all of these protesters and the mostly peaceful rioters, the guys, that are burning down buildings and destroying people's, decades of, I built my hardware store and this guy comes over with a match and all of a sudden it's up, in flames, and then the insurance companies don't want to pay for it and all that stuff. I think people had enough of that shit. Honestly, that's my opinion. I think that they've had enough of that. Right. And I think there's going to be a lot of pushback. And you realize if the side that was, the constitutional side, the Second Amendment side, those guys with the amount of guns and rifles and shotguns and bullets that side has, because by the grace of God, we have a militia, right? If they were a problem, that problem would have been very noticeable a long time ago. Okay. That is not the problem. The problem is these paid hoodlums and these agitators, it's the same communist program, right? You get agitators and then you get people dissatisfied with the status quo. And then you want to go like the full, everything that doesn't make sense makes perfect sense. What's black is now white. What was white is now black. All of these things lead to chaos, and people don't really know what chaos is all about. But you want my opinion? My opinion is if Trump is elected, there's going to be some unsettling things happening because they are going to pull out all the stops. They do not want this man in office because this man is threatening their livelihood, threatening their positions of power. They vilified him. They used lawfare on him. They've tried to assassinate him. They've done everything possible. That tells me something, right? Somebody who is being attacked like that from that side tells me that they are deadly afraid of him. And so, but if he's elected, we're going to have some pains. And I think if he's not elected, I think that they're going to have a complete permission slip, a green light, the go ahead to turn this or attempt to turn the country into a communist state. Now, what I also believe is, I believe that this country was founded on a certain mindset of rugged individualism that is not, that's in people's DNA, right? Where I live, you got these guys that are awfully nice people, but boy, don't F with them, okay? Because they're not going to take kindly to it. And I don't think people are going to accept it. That's my opinion. I hope I answered your question to the extent that I could, because I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen. I just, I think what I try to do is just use common sense, right? You're looking at this board, right? And it's pretty obvious who's winning and who's losing and what's going on and what side these are on. I'm hoping that this country gets united behind the idea of financial freedom, food freedom, medical freedom, okay, and the United States Constitution. That is the overarching umbrella that will protect all the aforementioned freedoms, the U.S. Constitution. And I know you don't have time for this, but, I have a fair bit to say about the financial situation, but you cover that so well, and you have for so long, you and Andy Scheckman and your kids and all that, you do a great job of trying to bring to people the understanding that U.S. fiat paper currency that they're holding in their pocket, that debt-based instrument is soon to be worthless. And if you're not holding real money, you're going to get screwed. You're going to lose your wealth. There's only one way to protect your wealth, and that's to convert that U.S. paper currency into either gold, silver, or land, or some form of tangible assets, whatever it may be, wells, generators, water, whatever. I think that's where we're at today.
Well, that will give us one more topic that we need to delve into in greater detail in a future session. Just very grateful for your service as a law enforcement officer prior to becoming sheriff, for your willingness to get dragged into that role of sheriff and fighting your way through that for 4 years, and your legacy of building trust with your community and standing up for ordinary people and for veterans and for the family, for mothers and fathers and their children. Sounds like your heart is in the right place in all the important places, and for the Constitution and all of the rights that it and duties that it promises to our people, so that we can have our beloved country, and including properly managed borders, etc. So we're going to have to talk with you about all those things in future visits. And we've been speaking with Francisco Rivero. He is a retired California sheriff, a lifetime lawman, and he's joining us this first time on Liberty and Finance. Francisco, on behalf of all of our viewers and subscribers, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, Donegan, and God bless you.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin Weekly Specials for October 7th through October 14th, 2024, while supplies last. First, we feature Australian silver kangaroos at just $2.99 over spot. Next, backdated 1-ounce gold Canadian maples are just $60 over spot. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.